Hey, you, ever find yourself daydreaming about, I don't know, swapping your everyday view for something totally different, like a scene from another country?
hmm
Maybe you've seen those Instagram posts, friends living it up in Portugal, or maybe exploring Bangkok.
Yeah, you see those feeds all the time.
You're definitely not alone if you have. There's this like huge wave of people packing up their lives,
Hmm.
redefining what home even means globally.
It's a real phenomenon. It really is.
Makes you wonder, right? What's actually driving this big shift? And, what does it really look like on the ground?
It certainly does make you wonder, and we're seeing this fascinating movement, really. Individuals seeking out completely new environments, new experiences internationally, and it's fueled by some really interesting factors underneath it all.
Okay.
So today, in this deep dive, we're going to unpack exactly why so many people are making this leap. We'll explore some of the most popular destinations. We'll touch on the cultural and language things you definitely need to consider, and maybe share some real stories too from people who've actually done it.
Like a guide almost.
Exactly. Think
Yeah.
of this as your personal guide to understanding the reasons and the realities behind this whole global trend. And hopefully, for our listeners, pick up some useful English along the way.
Precisely. So, in our chat today, we'll hit 5 main areas, basically. First, we'll dig into why. Why move abroad now?
The motivations, yeah.
Then we'll do a bit of a virtual tour, some of the top expat hotspots. After that, the practical stuff,
Yeah.
culture shock, language hurdles.
Okay.
You know?
The challenges, always important.
Definitely. We'll also hear some of those real-life stories you mentioned, get a feel for the actual experience. And finally, we'll cover some really useful English vocab if this is something you've ever thought about yourself. Sound good?
Absolutely. Let's dive in. So, starting with those core motivations,
Yeah.
what are the real push and pull factors here?
Yeah, what's pushing people out?
Well, one of the biggest, based on what we're seeing, is the sheer cost of living, especially in major cities.
Ah, okay. No surprise there.
Right. Things like housing, just everyday costs, they've become incredibly high. So people start looking for places where their money just goes further, where
Right.
they can get a better quality of life, maybe, for less.
It's like that feeling of, why struggle so hard just to make ends meet here when somewhere else offers, well, maybe a richer experience overall, more comfort?
Exactly. We see examples like Americans finding more affordable options in Mexico or Japanese individuals moving to Vietnam where costs are significantly lower.
Yeah, it makes total sense when you put it like that. But it's not just about the money, is it? There must be other things pulling people too.
You're right. It's definitely more than just economics. Another huge driver is, well, the whole digital nomad and remote work culture.
Right, the ability to work from anywhere.
Precisely. The internet's fundamentally changed things. That old office-based model, it's just not the only way anymore for a lot of professions.
So this work from anywhere idea gives people amazing freedom over where they live.
Unprecedented autonomy, really. You hear these terms now, like digital nomad, someone using remote work to travel and live wherever they want,
Uh-huh.
or companies being remote first, meaning they actively encourage it. This creates more and more location-independent people. Their income isn't tied down to one city or country.
Wow. So the whole world kind of becomes your potential office, your potential home base.
Pretty much.
And it feels like this freedom is also making people rethink what a good life actually means. Maybe shifting away from just, climbing the career ladder or getting more stuff.
That's a huge part of it. There's a definite shift towards prioritizing things like time freedom, more control over your own schedule,
That sounds good.
access to nature, maybe a beautiful natural environment, or embracing what some call a slow life, a more deliberate, less frantic pace.
It's a slow life. I like the sound of that.
Me too. And this changing idea of happiness is leading people to actively search for places that actually match these values, which brings us nicely to those hotspots we mentioned.
Okay, so where are people actually going?
Well, our sources point to a few consistent favorites. First up, Portugal. It's often described as a haven for expats.
A haven. Why is that?
Well, partly the lower cost of living, the nice climate, sure, but also apparently a relatively easier path to permanent residency compared to some other places. And people often mention a strong sense of community there. It taps into that well-being need.
Okay, Portugal definitely seems to tick a lot of boxes then. What else?
Then you've got Thailand, almost the classic remote work hub, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, perennial favorite. Digital nomad central.
Exactly. Amazing affordable food, vibrant culture, pretty low living costs overall. Ticks a lot of boxes for that lifestyle.
Right.
Then, jumping across the globe, Mexico,
Mm.
offering a very cost-effective lifestyle, especially appealing for Americans, obviously, because it's so close.
And the visa situation is generally quite friendly, I hear. Plus the culture.
Absolutely. Rich, diverse culture. Big draw. And then for people thinking more about family,
Canada often comes up.
it does. Often seen as a family-friendly destination,
Mm.
known for good public services, being welcoming to immigrants, and of course, that incredible natural environment.
Makes sense. Any others that are maybe less obvious?
One that's highlighted is Georgia, sometimes called an underrated gem.
Georgia. Okay.
Yeah, apparently offers visa-free entry for lots of nationalities, low taxes, and really good internet, which is key for remote workers. So another strong option, maybe less crowded.
Wow. So you can really see the different motivations playing out in the choice of country, can't you? It's very personal.
Deeply personal.
And just listening to you describe these places, it's a great chance for our listeners to pick up some useful English phrases, right?
Definitely.
Like saying Portugal is a haven for expats that paints a picture of welcome, of ease.
It does. Or calling Thailand a remote work hub instantly tells you who it appeals to.
And Mexico offering a cost-effective lifestyle clearly flags the financial benefit. Canada being family-friendly. Georgia, an underrated gem. These little phrases are really
They
descriptive.
capture the essence, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so you've picked your spot, you've made the move. What next? Well, you're almost certainly going to run into cultural differences, maybe language hurdles, even in English-speaking places.
All right. English isn't just English everywhere.
Not at all. You get regional variations. Like in the UK, you'll hear cheers used for thank you or goodbye, not just for a toast.
Mhm.
In Australia, no worries is super common. You say thank you, they say no worries. You apologize, no worries. It's very laid back.
Okay.
And maybe in Canada, people might seem a bit more overtly polite, perhaps more indirect in how they say things, compared to, say, the US, which can sometimes feel more direct.
Fascinating. How culture gets baked right into the language itself.
It really is.
And it's not just about vocabulary or accent, is it?
Yeah.
It can lead to actual misunderstandings in, like, everyday stuff.
Oh, for sure. Think about trying to rent an apartment, or asking for complicated directions, opening a bank account.
Or just chatting with neighbors.
Exactly. All situations where subtle differences in how you communicate, what's considered polite or normal, can trip you up.
So how can people, our listeners, handle these situations well using English? What's the key?
A lot of it boils down to being mindful, really. Politeness and clarity help enormously. For example, learning polite ways to ask for things, using phrases like, excuse me, could you please? Or, I was wondering if you could help me with.
Instead of just blurting out a demand.
Precisely. It makes a huge difference. And also knowing how to express if something's not right, but doing it tactfully.
Yeah. How do you complain without causing offense?
Well, maybe instead of, this is wrong, you could try, I'm a little concerned about this, or could we perhaps look at another option? It just softens it, shows respect, helps keep things positive.
That's really practical advice. Super useful for anyone thinking about this. Now, to make it even more real, let's talk about some of those stories you mentioned. People who've actually done it.
Right. Our sources share a few brief but quite powerful examples, like there's the Indian programmer who moved to Germany and finally found work-life balance.
Ah, work-life balance. That phrase says so much, doesn't it? It's a huge driver for people. What might that look like in Germany, do you think, compared to maybe India?
Well, perhaps more strictly protected time off, clearer boundaries between work hours and personal time, things that might not be as common in a different work culture.
I see.
And then there's the story of a Chinese illustrator who went to Malaysia. She found both inspiration and security.
Inspiration and security. Interesting combination. Shows the different things people are searching for, right? Creative energy, stability.
Basically, it's not always just one thing.
And it's crucial to remember, it's not always sunshine and roses from day one, is it?
Not at all. That story about the Brazilian family in Canada is a good reminder. The kids picked up English super fast, adapted quickly.
Yeah, kids often do.
But the parents found it harder initially. Adjusting to the culture took them longer. It shows that integration is a personal journey, different timelines for everyone.
Definitely. And from these little snapshots, we can pull out some really useful, common phrases for our listeners.
Yeah.
Like, it took me a while to adjust, but now I feel at home.
Classic settling in phrase perfectly captures that process.
Or, at first I felt a little out of place, but the community was so welcoming, highlighting how important that local support network can be.
These personal touches really bring home the human side of this whole trend, don't they?
They really do.
So, okay, for anyone listening who might actually be thinking about this, contemplating a move, let's focus on some essential English you might need.
Good idea. Like, how do you even start talking about it?
Well, expressing your dream, your reasons. You might say something simple like, I've always wanted to live abroad, or I'm really looking for a slower pace of life. Straightforward, but clear.
Okay. And then the practical hurdles. Visas, residency. Sounds complicated.
It can be. So knowing the right questions is key. Things like, what are the visa requirements for a long-term stay? Or how do I go about applying for a work permit? Having those phrases ready helps.
Yeah, take some of the stress out of it, I imagine.
Hopefully. And there's a whole vocabulary around the move itself. We talk about people who uproot their life.
Uproot, like pulling up roots, leaving everything familiar behind.
Exactly. They might decide to start over in a new place. Emphasizes that fresh beginning.
And the goal for many is to settle down abroad,
Right.
to build a stable life there.
Yes. And that journey involves cultural integration, learning, adapting to the new culture, which isn't always easy. It's totally normal to feel homesickness sometimes.
Yeah, longing for home, for what's familiar.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
All part of the process.
So listening to all this, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it really strikes me that choosing to live somewhere else, it's often not about escaping something. It feels more like moving towards something.
That's a really insightful way to put it. Moving towards a life that feels more aligned with your own values, what you're actually looking for.
Yeah.
And that leads us perfectly to a final thought, a question for you, our listener. If you could choose to live in any other country, just hypothetically, where would it be? And more importantly, why?
Good question.
Think about what really pulls you. Is it the climate, the culture, career stuff, or maybe something else entirely? It's not just daydreaming. It's a way to reflect on your own aspirations, right?
Yeah.
What does your ideal life look like?
Definitely food for thought. Something fascinating to consider. We really hope this deep dive gave everyone a clearer picture of this whole global movement, the why behind it.
And maybe some useful English vocabulary, too.
Absolutely. And perhaps sparked a little personal reflection on your own path. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.